十和田市現代美術館でアシスタントキュレーターをしている外山有茉と言います。今日モデレーターを務めますのでよろしくお願いします。今日の本日のイベントの概要を簡単にお話しします。十和田市現代美術館ではボランティアとして活動をしていただいているげんびサポーターさんに常設作品のことをより深く知ってもらえるようにアーティストの方たちを招いてお話を伺うトークイベントを開催しています。で、これまでに高橋京太さんと栗林隆さんのトークを昨年開催しました。で、3回目となる本日はジャウメプレンサさんをお招きしてます。ジャウメ・プレンサさんは1955年スペイン・バルセロナ生まれのアーティストで、バルセロナを拠点に80年代からヨーロッパやアメリカを中心に国際的に活躍されています。鉄やブロンズ、大理石、ガラスといった伝統的な彫刻の素材から水や光、音といった非物質的な素材も用いて非常に幅広い表現を生み出しているアーティストで、公共彫刻も多く手掛けられています。今日は十和田市現代美術館のアート広場に2010年に高級設置された作品エヴェン・シェティアについてその制作の経緯やアイデアなどをお話ししてもらって、そしてよりもっと近年の作品についてもご紹介いただきます。はい、じゃあジャウメさんプレゼンテーションを始めていただけますか。
Thank you, Aruma. It was really nice for me to be today with all of you. I hope in the distance we don't lose something in the middle. I would try to be as precise as possible with my explanations, thinking that I'm talking about a piece that I did a long time ago in 2010. To talk about SHETIA, I thought it was important to talk about other precedent pieces that I did in the same concept, a long spotlight, creating a bridge connecting earth and sky. That piece has been done in France in 1991, and it was mainly a big plate of cast iron. In the center, it was a hole in where the light comes through, and it was mainly an homage to water. As you know, I'm working a lot with the concept of water or near the water, because I don't know if it's because my origin is the Mediterranean origin. I feel always very strongly connected with water. I always thought that water is probably the most important public space in the world. For example, that piece has been done in Jerusalem at the Mizkeno Shananim, is a beautiful park right in front of the old wall of the city. And in the far lights that you can see over there is the lights of Amman in Jordanian. Mainly it's the same concept. It's a platform in where I have a hole in that case with four main concepts in the desert, which is honey and milk and earth and water. And as I did in the other piece in France, a light beam is connecting earth and sky. In 2000, and following also the concept of light, I did in Daikanyama that project called The Seven Deities of Good Fortune. And it was paying homage to this amazing, beautiful tradition in Japan about the deities that is accompanying us. Every bench, every single object has a different color, and all seven has this beautiful display in Daikanyama, which everybody knows is in Shibuya. You see, it's a beautiful display with people could sit on the benches, but also be embraced by the light. That is another piece that I did a little bit later, 5 years later, which is in London. It was the homage at the BBC Broadcasting House up in the Regent Street at Lagan Place. It was the old building, and where I installed in the roof that beautiful cone shape with some textures and a light beam coming through, was illuminated every day at 8:30 with the news of every day at the BBC. And that was the proposal that I did for the Singapore Biennial in 2006. It was the same concept, a big boulder, the concept with the light beam coming out. I installed the piece right in front of the synagogue in Singapore. The curator of the biennial was Fumio Nanjo, and some years later, Fumio invited me at Towada to do a project for the collection. And it was when I decided to go a little bit farther with the project in Singapore and create the event SHETIA, which was a beautiful boulder that we found in the Japanese mountains. and to create that piece, Eヴen SHETIA, with the light coming through as well. I have to say that I love especially that piece because it was the last piece in that group of families with light beams. And in 2010, I decided to do the last. Eヴen SHETIA is coming from the Hebrew tradition, the Jewish tradition of the foundational stone. The stone in where around was built the temple, around the temple, the city, around the city, the country, around the country, the continent, around the continent, the wall, around the world, the universe. That means from the smaller to the greatest. Well, obviously, my point of depart is part of my Western tradition, Hebrew tradition of my culture. But I have to say that I guess the concept is very, very wide in the way that this kind of energy coming out from the earth, I'm completely convinced that everybody could read from their own tradition different aspects of that piece. Well, I could talk also about other of my pieces around the world. Everybody knows that I'm working in parallel in two main concepts. I'm working a lot with alphabets and text. I'm working a lot with portraits. In that case, it's a group of pieces that made out with alphabets with different languages and origins and cultures. I'm working with Japanese, Chinese, Cyrillic, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, Hindi, and Latin mainly. Well, actually, it's not because those are the main alphabets. It's just to illustrate the beauty of the globality in that way, how well we are when we are together, keeping our specificity. Well, actually, that piece, for example, has been done in Toranamon Hills in Tokyo in 2014. And it's a good example also about my intention or my obsession to show how important is your origin in the development of your ideas. If you notice in that sculpture, the characters or the letters are elongated coming out from earth like roots, like floating roots. And that is also a good example about it, that it was a project that I did in Ogijima, is one of the little islands at the Seto inland in sea. And I guess it was beautiful because I had this possibility to make an hybrid with architecture and sculpture to invite people really to enjoy this positioning. You see, I create, I guess, like an island in the island, in the middle of this extraordinary landscape. But it's the entrance of this little pavilion, and I wanted to show you that picture because finally my intention was to represent like the shell of a shellfish, and two sides. One, it's real. The roof is real and the reflection on the water is virtual, but both together is making the two sides of the shellfish. And I'm walking to go inside, and I guess it's a beautiful representation what home could be for all of us. It's another way to represent letters in my work. I'm creating like a kind of curtains in where people could walk through. Yeah, here it's an image that I love. That is Yorkshire Sculptor Park in the north of England, and it's where I have installed that piece years ago, which is the 7 self-portraits with text covering my body and embracing a tree. I guess it's a beautiful representation of how important for me is nature and the respect of them. And that is one of the most iconic pieces I did. It's a crown fountain in Chicago at Millennium Park. And as everybody knows, it's a duality of two towers. I love duality, this concept of conversation, and each tower has the face of somebody spouting water from their mouth. It's the concept of the idea to return the gargoyle to the public space as we had in the Middle Age in my tradition, in the Western tradition, with fountains or gargoyles in the cathedrals, and when spouting water, which was this beautiful concept that I'll give you life through my mouth. And probably today, I'll give you life means to talk to you. I'll give you my words. Well, actually, one of the most important things for me in fountains is not just to see the water, but to enjoy the water, to really interact with. And the Crown Fountain has that capacity, especially kids understood immediately, and they really enjoy the water. Well, we continue on water. That was the installation of these two heads made out with wire on top of this beautiful pond in Nashville. It was a big exhibition that I did over there. And I guess it's a good representation of that idea that I'm always talking about duality, but also the reflection, what is real and unreal, what is visible and invisible. As I did in Ogijima, is the head, but also the reflection on the water. Well, in 2015, I've been at the Venice Biennial, and I've been showing inside this beautiful basilica in San Giorgio Maggiore, which is right in front of San Marco, the squares of San Marco. And inside I installed another of these mesh heads, a big one. And the beauty was that light and people was always seen through. I mean, it was this, I guess, beautiful concept that human beings are made out with air, with transparency, with light. That is another good example of my work in the public space. That is a piece in the north of England, near Liverpool, in a place called St. Helens. And it was in former times, 30 years ago, a very important mine for carbon, and they canceled all this exploitation, and then the people decided years later to transform the mine into a public park. That was the day of the opening, which was beautiful. You can see me over there in the corner, and I guess it was spectacular because the piece is 20 meters tall, and it's on top of a hill right in front of the Mersey River and the Mersey Valley. And I was, don't ask me why I was upset to reach the 100, because the hill is 86 meters tall and I did 20. And I love the concept of 100. And that was a very interesting installation that I did in the Fifth Avenue in New York, right in front of the Rockefeller Center during Freeze, the art fair in New York. It was for several months over there. And I liked the concept to try to explain that many times the big walls that don't let us see the problems or the suffering of the others are just our hands that cover our eyes and help us to be blind in front of the problems of the world. And that was, for me, a very important project that I did in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil some years ago as well. And it was finally the possibility for me to install one of my projects on the water. As I told you before, for me, water is the most important public space because it's always in movement. You never could see the same water twice. And it's always moving. This water that was in Rio maybe was in Tokyo the day after, maybe was in Barcelona the day before. And that is one of my last projects. I just unveiled that piece last October 2021, and it's in New Jersey, right in front of Manhattan, in the Hudson River. Is on top of a pier which is coming inside the river. And I guess it's very poetical for me and very beautiful because the portrait of that young woman is asking silence to listen the sound of the water again. This is a beautiful image that you can understand perfectly the positioning in this pier going inside the water in Newport, New Jersey, is right the entrance of New Jersey. And in the other side, you can see Manhattan. The little building in the center is one of the tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, which is connecting New Jersey with lower Manhattan. I guess that is a good example of my kind of work near the water, because I think it's a very strong concept, very strongly related with human being. As you probably know, the 60 or the 70% of our body is water. That is the reason I love so much water. And then the second is that every piece, it's creating a place to be. For me, a sculptor is a gathering place, it's not an object. Thanks to a piece, for example, in that case, we create a public park again. We transform a private area in a public park that people could go there to sit in the benches, enjoy the view, and probably to relax a little bit and to talk about their own thoughts. Well, I guess for me it's fine. Aruma, if you feel that people could ask me questions, would be lovely to start a conversation with all of them.
プレゼンテーションありがとうございました。質問がすでに少し来ているので、ちょっとそれを紹介しますね。最初のお城の作品で写真で光が青く見えたら、色は十和田と同じ白色ですか？
Well, actually, sometimes when you are trying to make a photo of the light beam, it's changing colors in function of the atmosphere, of the humidity in the air. And sometimes it looks more blue or more white, but it's the same kind of light. It's a very big spotlight that in Towada, it was fabricated in Japan, but normally in the other places has been done in Milano, in Italy.
ありがとうございます。私、チャットで来てる質問から始めちゃったんですけど、サポーターさんで聞いてくださっている方の質問がもしあったら、優先して聞きたいので、ちょっとじゃあ、サポーターさんを当てていきますね。じゃあ、松本恵美子さん。
今日は貴重なプレゼンどうもありがとうございます。そうですね、なんて言ったらいいんでしょう。まず大きな像、彫刻なんですけども、材質は何なんでしょうか。ちょっとそれが何なのかなと気になりました。
I'm using, as you can see in my web page, that it's a lot of information about my work, the diversity of materials that I'm using. I never thought a material is one direction. I always thought that a material is just a vehicle, necessary vehicle to express your ideas. Many times I've been talking about sculpture as a message inside a bottle, and I'm the message, but I need the bottle, okay? And this bottle is the material. I'm using a lot stainless steel, as you know, and I'm using a lot curtain, steel curtain, and then wood, marble, alabaster, glass. I'm casting glass in Venice and very often, and I don't know, all materials that I feel are the most appropriate every time that I want to create or express an idea. Fiberglass, marble dust, I don't know. We can talk hours about materials because the range of materials is huge. And in my work, especially, I use a lot of cast iron, for example, in that project that you have in front of you in France. It is light, but the rest of the piece is cast iron, for example.
この光の作品も素晴らしいですが、後の方で紹介していただいた人の形、頭の形のものもなかなか魅力的で、直に見てみたいなと思ったほどです。どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you.
岡田さん、どうでしょうか。
はい、岡田です。本日は貴重な機会をいただいてありがとうございました。2点質問なんですけれども、私以前小木島の瀬戸内の作品を拝見しまして、とても美しくて感動いたしました。それで、貝のように水面に反射するような美しい作品だったんですけれども、貝をテーマに選ばれたのはやはりその瀬戸内にいらっしゃって海の何かしら着想を得たのかということと、あとは海外でも海を望む作品が何点かありましたので、海の日本に例えばリサーチとかでいらっしゃった時の日本ならではのご自身の海の見え方というか感じ方、感想などあればちょっとお伺いしたいです。
Well, it's a very interesting question because I've been working a lot in Japan. I think I have a lot of contact with this country because I feel very close of their philosophy and their spirit. And obviously it's an island, and I mentioned many times that I always consider every individual as an island in the same ocean. I mean, every person in the world Every single person is like a little island with a perimeter, exactly, with a geography, with a personal geography that is sharing the same water around. Especially in that case that it was an island in the island. And I think it was, for me, extraordinary. And I don't know if you know, they did 3 years ago, I guess, a documentary about my work, and the crew went with me to Okijima. We fly from Europe to Okijima, and we spent beautiful days over there. And we understood that thanks to the project or this idea, a lot of people is living again in the island, because it was almost no people living in the little town in Ogijima, and now it's the more and more young couples with kids, and many times art is tremendous capacity to regenerate an area, to help to create life again on it. And I'm very proud about that project, and I love Ogijima and Takamatsu.
ジャウメさんのお考えが聞けて、理解が深まりました。ありがとうございます。
あとサポーターさんで坂本さん。
この機会いただきましてありがとうございます。おっしゃった言葉の中で、彫刻は空間っていうお言葉を述べられたんですが、いや、日本人にもですね、非常に空間の美しさっていうのを追求する芸術、例えば生け花とかですね、それから闇に対する、暗闇に対する、光に対する陰霊来参とか、そういうふうな気持ちが非常に私たち日本人にあるんですよ。ただ彫刻の本体だけを我々どうしても見がちなんですが、そこに設置しております、例えば大都会とか、それから海とか川とか、そういうふうな空間が非常に大切だなというふうなのを今感じまして、本当に目から鱗です。ありがとうございます。
Well, thank you for your comments. In any case, I guess if I'm an artist, it's because I love people, I love the community. And I guess art is an incredible way to open a dialogue with them. When you are working in your own shows, in a gallery or museums, is your private problem. But when you are working in the public space, I think it's amazing, because you are introducing beauty in an everyday life of people that they never ask about it. And it's a big responsibility. I think it's incredibly beauty when people really react in a very positive way, and they create, let's say, a link with you, even if you are far or you are coming from another culture. You are talking about a common memory. When you are going deeply inside your own roots, you are really touching the roots of everybody around the world.
ありがとうございます。
で、今すでにチャットにいただいている他の質問を読みますね。光の作品は大地と天をつないでいるということで、文字の作品は文字、アイデア、概念とつながるが、根が生えて大地とつながっているということでしたが、この2つの系統の作品群の間にもつながりがありますか？
Honestly, I guess I'm always talking about the same finally, which is this incredible relationship between materiality and immateriality, what we can touch and what we can imagine. And I think that it's incredible. Many times I said that the most important things in life are invisible. And I guess that it's key.
ワイヤーの作品を複数拝見して、実物と水面の二元性に加え、実物と影の二元性もあるのかなと感じたのですが、両者の差異についてよければお考えをお聞かせください。
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, I think the light and shadows are part of the same problem or the same beauty. I mean, a sculpture exists because shadows. I still remember I did many years ago a show in New York, and it was a kind of floating pieces made out with leathers. And it was for me very important, the projection of the shadows on the ground. And I remember a visitor in my opening said, Jaume, if tomorrow you miss that one of the shadows disappears because I stole it. I think it was beautiful because he transformed a shadow, something virtual, in something physically stolen. I think it was beautiful.
他にもサポーターさんから質問が事前に今日ちょっと参加できないということで事前にいただいた質問があるのでそれを一つご紹介します。エヴェン・シェティアは晴れた日は湾曲しながらも遥か彼方に光が伸びていくのですが、雲がある日は雲に光が当たり、雲に光の筋が吸い込まれていく感じがブラックホールのように見えて想像力が湧き、私は大好きな作品です。まさに想像の石ですね。鑑賞者がブラックホールを感じるかとジャウメさんは思ったでしょうか。
Well, it's a very interesting question because it opens that dialogue about what a piece means. For me, I need a point of the part, but the visitors or the person or the people in front of an artwork could have different ideas, not necessarily the same of us, but the same of the artist's idea in the origin. And I think that is the key or the beauty of an artwork. To be as open as possible to different ways to be read it.
はい、ありがとうございます。先ほど鷲田さんがもう一つ質問あるっておっしゃってたので、それを聞いてみようかと思います。
はい、ありがとうございます。この石の下にライトが入ってて、そこから上に向かって光が発せられてるっていうのを、知ってるので、なんか私は石から光が出ているようなものをこう表現したかったのかと思ってたんですけど、今日のお話ではなんか光の作品全般に大地と、天をこう光がつないでるっていうような言い方をされてたと思うんですけど、あまりそうすると石から上に向かってっていう方向性はそんなに意識されてなくて、例えばこれが天から大地に向かって降りてきている光っていうふうにも、捉えたりするようなこともなんかできるのかなとも思ったんですけれど、天と大地をこう光がつないでいるということについてどういうふうに思っているのかもうちょっとお伺いできたらと思いました。
Very interesting question because it could be also the opposite. We can even go farther to say the connection of hell and heaven, which is not earth and sky, is hell and heaven. That means the good and the bad, and this idea of the sin and the perfection. Okay. I guess in that case, the light beam for me is more like a bridge in both directions. It's not something coming out from Earth only, could be in the opposite. It's just a bridge built up, a virtual bridge that could connect our material ideas with our dream ideas. That means, I guess we have a tremendous capacity of imagination. I remember Einstein, the famous physician, said that imagination is more important than knowledge. And I'm completely agree. I mean, and I guess art has this tremendous capacity to open little windows, little doors in our brain to be open to other capacities or other possibilities. I guess the light pieces that I did in that period of time was like that, to try to connect, let's say, my reality, my physical reality with my dreams.
ありがとうございます。橋っていう例えはすごく分かりやすかったです。ありがとうございます。
Thank you, Neruro.
そうしたらちょっと私からもいくつか質問をしたいんですけど、ちょっと簡単にプレゼンで見せてもらった文字のカーテンの作品とかがあったと思うんですね。で、文字をよく、その人体の形の彫刻で文字をこうあしらっていたり、文字を、エヴェンセティはもちろん文字を刻んで意味が作られているので、文字を作品で使うとか、引用、文学作品からの引用を使われることが多いと思うんですけど、 それをもうちょっとお話ししていただきたくて、例えば、文字が体を覆っているようなものって、それぞれの文字の意味を知ってというか、文字の意味からいろんな外国語の文字を組み合わせていますか？
Well, actually, it's a very interesting question because when I'm mixing up different alphabets, obviously I don't know all the languages in the world, but I accept that they are their own alphabet, and I'm using those alphabets as the portrait of their own culture. And it's like to use a photo of a tradition, a cultural tradition. I guess an alphabet is representing very well the background of one culture. And I love when I put all together because I think it's an homage to diversity. I love diversity. And I love diversity when we are together, but keeping our background, our tradition, our way to be together. And as more different we are, more things to have to exchange and to share together.
ありがとうございます。じゃあセルフポートレート、ごめんなさい、ポートレートっていうところからもうちょっと発展して、彫刻が木を抱えていたハート・オブ・ツリーっていう作品を見せていただいたんですけど、それをセルフポートレートとおっしゃってたんですけど、なぜそれがセルフポートレートなのかっていうことをもうちょっと説明していただけますか
？Yeah, sure. I mean, the Heart of Trees, I have also another group called it the Heart of Rivers. In any case, it was my self-portrait in this posture, which is embracing a tree, because it's coming from the old tradition of the alchemist. As you probably know, in the Middle Age, it was a group of people called it alchemists, which were dreaming to transform lead into gold. But it was just a metaphor about to transform the dead material into alive materials. And that day was represented with a tree. And it was from the dead body, a new life is coming up in the shape of a tree. And the tree becomes like a bridge, like the light beam, like a bridge, connecting the mineral with the sky. And I was paying homage of myself, a portrait, covered with the names of musicians, music composers that I love, embracing that tree that for me is one of the center of my Western tradition. That my body, it was cast in bronze, and the tree is alive. That means it's the death material, which is the bronze, which is fixed in one side, and the tree that continues to grow.
あとじゃあもう少しそのポートレートの話で言うと、その後半に見せていただいた顔、女性の顔、頭、頭部のものもポートレートだと思うんですね。名前が個人の名前がついているものもいくつかあって、そのモデルとなったこの名前がついているものもあって、それがポートレートだと思うんですけど、このなぜこういう人物を選んでこの顔を選んでいる理由っていうのをもうちょっと説明していただけますか？
Yeah, sure. I'm showing again the Crown Fountain in the portraits. I've been filming 1,000 faces of people living in Chicago. And when I decided to keep on the portraits, I did portraits of other people with more traditional materials, as stainless steel or resin, for example, like this. But I'm always using real people. But I could say that every portrait is a real person, always young woman. That because I always thought memory is female and future is female. I guess the male is just a beautiful accident, but an accident.
ありがとうございます。
May I have a question? Can I ask a question myself? I would love to know, to ask to Mr. Washida or to you, Aruma, how is the response of the audience in Towada in front of my work in general?
私ちょっと十和田に来てまだ半年ほどなんですけど、さっきの質問にもちょっと書いてありましたけど、夜暗くなってからって遠くからでも見えるんですよね。昼間はすぐ近くに他の草間さんの作品があったりとか、他のアーティストの作品があって、なんか石があるなっていう感じなんですけど、夜光が出ると、十和田って小さい町で、そんなに夜街の光がないので、すごく光が印象的で、個人的な感想ですけど、美術館で仕事終わって帰るときになんかちょっと駐車場から振り返ったら光の柱が見えてたり、なんかそういうふとしたときに外にある作品で、しかも夜ついてるので、ふとしたときに目に入るっていうのが、なんか美術館だと作品を見に行こうと思って作品を、もうそういう心構えで作品を見るんですけど、普通の生活してる時に光が見えるっていうのが、予期してないなんか美しさに出会うみたいなところがあるなと思います。これすみません、私の感想になりました。
Thank you.
今のジャウメさんの質問に答える形で答えてくれている方がいるので、それ読みますね。夜疲れている時に見ると上向きな気分になれます。冬の寒い吹雪の時こそとても綺麗に見えて元気をもらっています。ずっと見ていられます。
Wonderful, thank you.
同様に他にも夜遠くから見ると何かほっとしますとか、雪の日や花火大会の夜にもとても素敵ですというコメントがあります。昼間子供たちが石の周りで楽しそうに遊んでいる光景もぜひジャーメさんに見せたいですっておっしゃってます。
Well, I have to say, can I say something about it? I mean, the piece, Event SHETIA has two moments of life during the day and during the night, probably as we have, as people has. During the day, we are more real. During the night, all our magic aspects appear suddenly. And I guess it's when the light is visible, is when our aura is visible, is when many of our dreams are possible.
ありがとうございます。質問がチャットで来てるので、それを読みますね。先ほどの橋のお話、これは光の橋のことですね。先ほどの橋のお話、大変興味深かったです。光という実物を橋と捉えることは想像で、物質的なものではないと言えると思います。ということは、光は形があるものでもあり、形がないものでもある間の存在だと思ったのですが、光の捉え方についてさらにお考えをお聞かせいただけませんか。なんか下に付け加える形で、人間は光でできているという発言についても、ジャーメさんにとっての光の解釈とともにもう少し聞いてみたいです。
Well, I mentioned before that I was born in the Mediterranean area. The Mediterranean area is an area in where people love to touch, to verify everything. Many times I said that my eyes are in my fingers, in the way that I have to caress everything. Probably I went so far that I also thought that I could caress light, I could caress silence, I could caress sound, I could caress invisible or intangible things, because you caress with your dreams, with your ideas. I think that is the most important part of art.
ありがとうございます。ちょっと時間がだんだん来ているので、なんか最後に、もうオーディエンスから質問ないので、ちょっと私一つ質問していいですか。ジャーメさんについて本読んだり調べていて、ジャーメさんの両親って音楽家を志してたと伺ってます。で、ピアノの演奏とかオペラシンガーだったと聞いてるんですね。で、あと、その作品に文字がよく出てくるとかいうのも、お父様が読書家だったって、で、本に囲まれて育ったと、聞いているんですけど、で、美術作品よりもポエトリー、詩からインスピレーションを受けてきたとよくおっしゃっていて、そういうその音楽家 の両親と、本に囲まれて育ったっていう背景の中で、どうしてその手で何かを作るっていう、その手で彫ったりはされないですけど、どうして彫刻家の道を志したのかなっていうのがちょっと気になっていて、それを最後に聞きたいです。
I'm still asking myself the same. I mean, I still remember that many times when my father was playing piano, I was inside of the piano because many times I had a brother, and when it was a little bit fight with him, I hidden myself inside the piano. As you know, a vertical piano has an empty space in the right side because the harp has a triangular shape and it leaves an emptiness in one side, that it was exactly the volume of my body. And I was hiding myself inside the piano, and sometimes my father was playing without the knowledge that I was in. And I guess that was the origin of why I'm a sculptor, because when you are inside, you feel the vibration of the instrument, the smell of the wood, the smell of the strings, the smell of the dust, but the vibration of the instrument, and your body and the instrument is vibrating all together as the vibration of the cosmos. And I guess the vibration of the material is exactly a sculpture.
ありがとうございます。バイブレーションっていう振動がスカルプチャーだっていうのはすごくちょっと面白くて、もうちょっとお聞きしたいし、もうちょっと考えていきたいなっていう感じなんですけど、ちょっと時間が過ぎてしまったので、ここまで、質問はここまでにしたいと思います。ありがとうございます。今日のお話をジャーメさんから直接伺ったことで、トワーダのサポーターの皆さんも改めてそのエヴェン・シェティアを見て、何か新しいことに気づきがあるのではないかなと思います。で、十和田市現代美術館では今年度からげんび散歩っていうサポーターさんが一般の来場者さんと一緒に作品を見て話し合うプログラムが始まっているので、サポーターさんは今日のイベントでその作品について新たに知ったり考えたりしたことをこれからいろんな方と共有していっていただければと思います。この記録映像をオンラインに上げるので、今日参加できなかった方もジャーメさんについてもっと知る機会になったんだと思います。ありがとうございます。
Well, thank you to you as well, Jaume, for your translation, and thank you, Aruma.And to Mr. Meruro as well. I hope in the near future I could visit you personally there. And thank you for your collaboration. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Thank you.